Joining us now, former Deputy Assistant Attorney General Thomas Dupree and former federal prosecutor Jim Trusty. We begin with the Christmas parade attack. First to you, Thomas Dupree. Darrell Brooks just moments ago in court. We learned a sixth person has died. That's the breaking news. They intend to charge him with 6 intentional homicide charges. Bail set at $5 million cash. First to you, Thomas, your reaction?
Well, this is just an unfolding tragedy, Liz. The more we learn about what happened in Wisconsin at that parade, the more horrible it becomes. I think it's good that they, at least now, seem to be taking this guy seriously and bringing appropriate charges. I wish that they had recognized the danger that this individual posed to the community several weeks ago when they let him out on $1,000 bail. This is an individual, a violent career criminal who never should have been walking the streets of Wisconsin.
You know, Jim, he ran over and killed now 6 people. Now a child is dead. He injured 48, many seriously, with his SUV at a Christmas parade in Waukesha, Wisconsin. He's been charged with at least 10 violent crimes since 1999. He's got a criminal track record dating back 2 decades. What do you say to this?
Well, you know, keep in mind there's, I think, 17 children that were sent to children's hospitals aside from the one that just passed. I mean, this is a horrible event, and it deserves the scrutiny of what happened with the judicial system. This guy had a 2020 reckless endangerment charge and a felon in possession, long criminal record. 2 weeks ago, when he was let loose on $1,000, it was for basically running over a woman with that same car and having a felony bail jumping charge and having a warrant in Nevada. Like, when you talk about pretrial detention, it's based on 2 things: risk of flight and danger to the community. This guy rings every possible bell for each of those prongs, had no business being out on the street. And any prosecutor and any judge that just winked and nodded and let him out should have a real day of reckoning for what's happened since that day.
He has not filed his plea yet. We will monitor this situation as it unfolds. Back to you, Thomas. Let's turn to Kyle Rittenhouse. Kyle Rittenhouse, by the way, he faced $2 million in bail versus Brooks at $1,000 in bail in the last go-around. There's that, and there's also this, Thomas. Mr. Dupree, does Rittenhouse have a defamation case against the media and then candidate Biden for erroneous claims against him?
Well, defamation cases are really difficult to prevail on, Liz. I tell my clients this all the time, and that in order to win on defamation, you have to prove all sorts of things under law. You have to show that it was a statement of fact. You often have to show actual malice. It's very, very difficult to win on defamation cases in the United States. From my perspective, I think really his most effective rebuttal to all the things that were said about him, many of which were false, I think the most effective rebuttal is the jury's verdict. In my view, the jury's verdict acquitting Kyle Rittenhouse speaks far more powerfully than any lawsuit ever could.
Yeah, to what Thomas just said, Jim, Rittenhouse and his attorney reportedly believe that this is actionable, what happened, the false attacks on Rittenhouse. What do you say?
Well, I think it is. I mean, and look, I don't think you're going to have actual malice because he was not a public figure at the time that this stuff happened. I mean, there's different gradations of what you have to show by way of the defamer based on your kind of status in the society. So I'm not sure it's going to be the most uphill defamation case. And look, just like with Nicholas Sandmann, I think sometimes people that are demonizing someone that has not gone through the judicial system, who are calling out because they have an agenda, basically their own narrative as opposed to evidence, they deserve to be called down on it sometimes. So I think he should take a deep breath, try to get on with his life a little bit, but unleash a couple of lawyers to go after defamation, because a lot of these folks are going to have to pony up.
Yeah, in this case, it seemed like there was no presumption of innocence, no thoughts about due process, trial by jury, proof of guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. With Rittenhouse, it was like accusations are tantamount to convictions in the media and with Democrats. They could not, Thomas, they could not identify specific flaws with the process. They just disagreed with the outcome. What do you say?
I think there's a lot of truth to that. Look, I think it's no secret that what happened here is a lot of people saw Kyle Rittenhouse and what unfolded that night through a particular lens, that it fit a preconceived storyline, it fit a preconceived narrative that they had. And to your point, all these wonderful constitutional protections that some folks in our society are so quick to champion, such as the presumption of innocence, proof beyond a reasonable doubt. It's funny how so many of those great constitutional concepts and protections get thrown out the window when the defendant is someone they happen to find unpalatable.
Yeah, to Thomas's point. And by the way, Nicholas Sandmann won a $275 million settlement with CNN after it did false reporting on his confrontation with a Native American during a D.C. school trip. By the way, let's watch Kyle Rittenhouse on this. Watch what happened with Tucker Carlson last night.
Mr. President, if I could say one thing to you, I would urge you to go back and watch the trial and understand the facts before you make a statement.
That's not a small thing to be called that.
No, it's actual malice, defaming my character for him to say something like that. He crossed state lines, false. He's a white supremacist, false. None of that is true. And the lies that they can just get away with spreading is just sickening, and it's a disgrace to this country. I have really good lawyers who are taking care of that right now. So I'm hoping one day there will be accountability for their actions that they did.
Okay, so you're intent on you're not going to let that go.
Like I said, really good lawyers are handling that.
Really good lawyers handling that. You know, back to you. I guess I'm going back to Jim. Is that right? Jim, you know, if you look at the statements, we're showing the media's false statements about Rittenhouse now. Candidate Biden called him a white supremacist. They really poisoned the well and the national conversation on this, because when you go out and you talk to people about it, they don't understand the facts of this case, how badly America has been misled on this.
Yeah, and you know, there's, I think, special recognition here for Joe Biden in this process, and I guess even recently the vice president, because when people that are at the highest reaches of government weigh in and prejudge, and we've had several incidences of this in the last few presidencies, where they weigh in and announce that they've figured it all out before somebody is even charged or has gone to court. That's damaging for the system. You know, it's feeding into this emotional virtual mob as well as the actual mob on the streets of Kenosha. And it's a terrible idea no matter what they think. I mean, these people should be upholding the criminal justice institution, saying, let's be reasonable, rational, let's let the process play out. But instead, for cheap politics, you've got people denouncing 17, 18-year-old kids and hoping to get away with it without any sort of recompense. So, you know, again, Godspeed to Kyle. I think he needs to go ahead and fire away on these civil suits.
And Tom, you know, the president campaigned on unifying the country, right? The media reported that too. It was great that he was going to unify the country. Now, both of them, critics are saying, are splitting the country with false accusations. What do you say?
I think one of the best ways you can unify the country is just to hold your fire until you actually know what the facts on the ground are. When you jump out like this, kind of preemptively, announcing your conclusion before the evidence comes in, before the facts come in, you say, I figured it out, I know the answer. That is a recipe for division. I think the president would have been much better served saying, look, let's let this process play out. Let's hear the testimony from the witnesses. Let's watch the video evidence. Let's let the jury speak before we reach any conclusions.
Thomas Dupree and Jim Trusty, it's good to see you. We will have you back on again soon.